Hello, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. It gives me such a great pleasure today to invite to have all of you join us. We have about 150 people from all over the world, and it's really heartening to see the interest in the women of Labuan. So first and foremost, to all the women out there, and to the men, to everyone, really, happy International Women's Day. It's a celebration of gender inclusivity, of equality, and really it's a day for everyone to celebrate, and it's fantastic. You know, a lot of people have asked me what was the idea behind this, because to be honest with you, this is the first time Labuan IBFC is doing something that's not technical, i.e. Not related to the verticals, the industry, the financial verticals that we are in. And really it was a discussion that we had with one of our license holders, and he pointed out to me that actually, aside from myself, all my managers are female. And he questioned whether we were being, well, I was being equal and inclusive in how I looked at things. And then that started the ball rolling. And, you know, for those of you who know me, know that, you know, when it starts moving, it doesn't stop. And really, it's great to see such interest. And it's great to have this fantastic panel that we will put on for you. And, you know, it's fantastic to also know that, you know, more than 150 people are here, and they're from all over. They're from Asia Pacific. We've got representation from Africa. We've got our friends from Mauritius. We've got people from Europe. It's just fantastic. I just wanted to say that a big thank you to the panel. So I'm live now. The panel was recorded due to time limitations on all the panelists' side. I also would like to thank Lead Women and Anne Abraham for agreeing to chair this. It was a fantastic discussion. It was very candid. It was very open. And really, I wanted to go back before we start the video to say a couple of things. Number one, stay tuned to the end, because what we'll have at the end is a live session with myself and the team here about our journey towards gender diversity, and how we feel, how we've grown as women. Well, as humans first, really, and then as women. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I want everyone to think about the title of this year's IWD. I mean, there are three words, you know, like the other famous three words, the I love you words, very simple, but very thought-provoking, very emotive. And those words are choose to challenge. Right? Think about those words as you listen in, and think about those words and what it resonates with you, whether you're a man or woman. So I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I'll see you at the end. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Thank you.
So good afternoon, ladies. It is indeed my pleasure to be moderating this inaugural International Women's Day panel for Labuan and for the women of Labuan. I also understand that this being the very first time that we are showcasing the women of Labuan, especially the women leaders in Labuan. And this is indeed a great pleasure for me, because, you know, the work that I do is very much centered around women in leadership. And in fact, this year's theme, International Women's Day 2021, the theme is women leadership. So perfect in every way in terms of the topic. Now, we've added the hashtag on to say dangerous women in the midst of crisis. And I think you will all agree it is kind of a dangerous period in the midst of crisis. But the IWD theme and their hashtag is choose to challenge, which is also very appropriate. It's going to be a time of challenge, and we as women leaders in these dangerous times need to choose what we challenge. So ladies and gentlemen, ladies really. So ladies, you know, this is a time of crisis. It's a pandemic. And you as women leaders in your own right, owning your own space, have seen your leadership come to test in many times in this period of leadership challenges and crisis. And one of the things we noticed in crisis and women leadership, that the women are very resilient. And women have come together in solidarity to not just drive leadership for the organizations, but have really come together, built on their networks, pulled their resources in order to be able to make a social impact to those that matter. Many lives were actually in a very precarious situation. Many lives, people didn't have food, there were no supplies. But I looked at what the Labuan women had done in that particular time, and it's totally impressive. So you guys came together, you pulled resources, you leveraged your networks to really bring relief to many people. If I'm not mistaken, you actually were able to collect almost 700,000 and build on aid and provide to people who need it. And that's tremendous. And if you look at that and we look at that leadership, really that is what women leadership is all about. We don't just look for position and power, but we look to be able to have meaning in our lives and bring our leadership down so that we can create that kind of meaning in lives of other people. And that is commendable. I also want to bring to note that I know you all know that, women are coming out of universities with qualifications, with doctorates, with masters, with degrees at a rate that is much higher than men. But when you look at the workforces, you will find that our percentages, especially women in leadership and right at the top, is quite dismal. We are not able to retain our women in the workforce. And there are many reasons, and I know you're going to share some of the many reasons because you have been challenged in many ways, but you have persisted and you have gotten to where you are in your leadership because of that. And that is, again, another amazing thing that I see in women. So I think, the statistics showing from McKinsey to many other research houses show us that there is a need for us to focus on really driving women in leadership. Really trying to understand what's the issue, what are we missing in this conversation, where are the roadblocks, where are the barriers? And we as women, I think we owe it to ourselves and the next generation of women to do something about it in whatever way that makes sense and brings meaning to us. In fact, The Edge in 2010 said, we are embarking on a decade that is disruptive, that is going to change many things. And sure enough, 2020, it was such an unprecedented time. I can use that word, overused, I must say, but it was totally unprecedented for all of us, right? And that is a time as well that it really brought out the leadership of many leaders globally as well. I think you all have seen that yourselves, right? And there's this lady called Pat Mitchell, who was the president of CNN, the first woman to actually lead a public broadcast station. First president and CEO, and they were all men. And this lady, Pat Mitchell, said, it takes dangerous women to lead in dangerous times. And what she meant really is that women have to be bold and brave and courageous in order to bring that change, especially in times like this that we are facing. So I hope I've set the stage because I really want us to be bold and brave in this conversation and take some very unusual stands and choose to challenge what is most important to you, to your organizations, and for the younger women who are coming up in our next generation to lead. And what I would like to do from here is to really pass the conversation back to you, women, because I think I am totally honored to be moderating a panel with such esteemed women. And I myself am curious to hear about your journeys. So what I'll do is I'll pass it back to each one of you. And I'd like you to actually introduce yourselves, your name, your company, your position, and then put on the table one of the largest or the major challenges that you've had to overcome in order to get to where you are today. So with this, I'll pass it to Farah first as the host of this whole panel. And from Farah, we'll then pass the conversation across. So Farah, over to you.
Thank you, Anne. My name is Farah. I'm CEO of Labuan IBFC Incorporated. So we are a wholly owned subsidiary of the regulator, Labuan Financial Services Authority. And our role is really to market the jurisdiction. Our role is to develop the jurisdiction and build an ecosystem that supports the growth of the jurisdiction. I'm honored to be in this position. I can tell you one thing. I don't think I was hired because they needed to tick a box for a woman. I would like to think, no. I know I was hired because I was the best candidate for the job. And the biggest challenge I have to always, and it's really difficult for me to kind of be open about this because everyone looks at me and goes, oh, she's super confident. But actually, the biggest challenge for me was to look at myself in the mirror and say, you are enough. Whatever I felt that I was not enough of, I actually am. I know I am. And I know that all of us are. So it's important for me to want to ensure that the second line, third line, fourth line, all the women that support the Labuan Financial Services ecosystem understand that don't doubt yourself. You are enough, and if you feel you're not enough, it's important to also appreciate that there's a whole network of support from other women that will be able to help you push this barrier, as it were. So yeah, so that was my biggest challenge, or is still my biggest challenge, actually.
Okay, to really feel that I'm enough and I don't need to
Yes.
keep, pushing myself even further. Okay, thank you for that. Leila, what about you? Introduce yourself and maybe share your challenge.
Thank you, Anne. Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Leila Omar. I'm currently the principal officer, or rather the general manager for CMB Bank L Limited and CMB Bank Labuan Offshore Branch. I manage the Labuan office and also our KL marketing office. So, and basically, in terms of what I have to challenge to make it, well, we are all very much aware of the stigma or the stereotype thinking that women always choose family over career, especially for the baby boomers generation, for which I have to admit I am one. This challenge is, of course, something that a majority of women face every day, no matter which industry they are in, when in fact, it doesn't have to be either one. Women are great multitaskers, and we need to believe that. Now, it is up to us to put ourselves out there and challenge the elephant in the room. So basically, that's my take.
So you feel the elephant is that stigma
Yes.
that we have to break against. Okay, thank you for that. And Yon, what about you?
Okay, I'm Yon Zahima Ibrahim. I'm the director for the corporate information and relations for Labuan FSA. As we all know, the center of the Labuan IBFC has been here for over 30 years. I've been fortunate to be working in the industry as well as with Labuan FSA for the last 16 years. And there are so many changes, from the beginning till now, and we could see it's evolving and a lot more challenges, but at the same time a lot more opportunities in the center. And I think that for me, having been in the working world for so long, my challenge is, I think, it's just to continue to see what are the things that I can do to make myself better, and I think for being in the organization, I'm also the only woman in the management committee, in the directors level. So my thinking is also, how do I bring my other colleagues to the level that I am as well. I think there's space there for the others, and it is one, and that we at the management is also looking at, to see we have potential candidates, and we have the ones that are actually have the potential to go further. So to groom and to provide the succession planning, which would include more of us in that, on that table. So that's what I have from my side.
Okay, so your challenge is, how do I get more women up to the levels, and and I think that's really a conversation we need to have today with a bit more depth as well. And Ariel, you're the youngest one on this panel, so tell us a little bit about yourself and then your challenge.
Hi everyone, my name is Ariel. I'm currently working as the Officer Manager of Marsh Management Services Labuan Limited. I moved to Labuan at 2019 from Beijing, China to here. So as a woman, I feel the biggest challenge normally comes from ourselves. So please allow me to explain a little bit about this point. As a woman, sometimes I feel there is a clock ticking right in front of us. At 15, you get into a great high school. At 18, you get into this reputable, fantastic university and graduate at 22, 23 with a fancy diploma and join the big name company as a junior entry-level employee. However, the story ends soon. And 25 or 30, you have family, marry your princess, and happily ever after. And no story since then. But we are, unlike Cinderella, we are more like Cinderella's sisters. We are trying so hard to cut ourselves to fit this perfect stereotype. And for example, we have to be slim, we have to be pretty, we have to act elegant, and we have to talk softly, don't be too aggressive. But most importantly, we have to be strong, right? But we are human, and sometimes we have feelings and emotions, especially for women, we have a lot of emotions and feelings. But sometimes we are not allowed to talking about them, and we are not allowed to be vulnerable. So I think the being vulnerable is very important for women. Yeah, because there is a movie called Inside Out, published by Pixar. Yeah, just like that movie, being vulnerable sometimes brings help, builds the connections, deep connections between each other. So I think as a woman, we need to acknowledge our feelings and emotions and being vulnerable.
Thank you, Ariel. I mean, I think those are conversations in our mind all the time, right? And she already played out so many roles and expectations. And that's also the start of many challenges we face as women. Thank you for that. And I think it'll be an interesting conversation to bring into this bigger conversation. Thank you for that. And Kim.
Hello, everyone. My name is Go Ka Im. I'm known as Kim for short. I'm a member of the Labuan Financial Services Authority. And the other hats I wear is I come from the field of law and taxation. And when I first started, after, as Ariel said, getting my pretty degree, there were not many women in law or taxation. As an example, when I joined my law firm, there were 20 partners, 19 were men, 1 was a woman. And she was the only woman partner. She had broken the glass ceiling where the firm was concerned, and there were no other. So you can see that in those days, which is quite a few years ago, it was a difficult field to break into for law, and as well as for taxation. I think along the way, I was very fortunate because I had a boss and a mentor. I did my pupillage under one of the partners, and he was always very encouraging. He never thought that there was anything that a competent woman lawyer wouldn't be able to do. So he would throw me into the deep end. I still remember that in the field of taxation, he sent me to speak at an international conference when I was just a junior lawyer of 2-3 years, which was quite amazing. And at that conference, the panel, surprise, surprise, consisted of all men except me. So having been thrown in at the deep end, having faced the challenges very early on, it became almost like second nature, that you don't consider it to be a difficult thing, and you just go along with it. So I think we definitely have come a very long way since then, and you can see from the numbers in terms of lawyers in Malaysia and people in the taxation field. I would imagine that, especially where lawyers are concerned now, at least 50% would be women. So I think we have come very far, and of course we can still do even better.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And if I were to just listen to all of you and sum up some of the things that have come out, I think the challenges are ourselves. We have talked about us being sometimes our own worst enemy because of, and not only because of that, but because of the environment, the stereotypes, the biases, the situation that we are placed in. We tend to look inwardly and say, are we good enough? Like what Farah said. Or can I go even further? What is the expectation from society? And then we also heard things, and they are basically stereotypes and biases. And a lot of the time when you get to the levels that you women are in, you're the only woman up there. It's quite lonely at the top. And when you don't have a network to support you, it gets quite tough because you're taking a lot of decisions without, a kind of like, let's talk about it, where we don't have these clubs and networks. And then, of course, the other is, like Kim mentioned, she really was blessed to have a good sponsor who really took her by the hand and said, okay, come, give you this opportunity, let me open a door for you, right? So the multiple facets of challenge is just amazing that a woman has to go through. So let me put on the table, first of all, what is real is the stereotype and the biases out there. And we're dealing with it all the time. And it's become second nature in many ways. Sometimes we just accept it and we work around these biases. But I think today, because of the title and hashtag of International Women's Day, we must choose to challenge something. And so let it even be this stereotype or this bias or mindsets or behaviors. But I think that's the underlying thing really that's shaping a lot of the issues we face as women, whether young or much older on. So let me ask Ariel to talk a little bit more about some of these biases that she has encountered that she feels today she needs to take and really deal with. And how would you think you can deal with some of these things?
Okay, thank you for starting the conversation with me. And I feel the most stubborn stereotype is that as a woman you have to be perfect. That's the most important thing. You look pretty, you wearing the proper accessories and using those things to equip you and fit the standard set by the society. And you emotionally you have to be strong. You don't show weakness, and you do your things in very tough way. But somehow in our inside, we are still worried, scared all the time. I would like to share a personal experience about this. A few years ago, I have experienced a tragedy of life, and that time I was extremely vulnerable, and literally I can burst into tears any second. So I try to communicate these strong feelings with friends or others around us, but as you know, Peking is a city full of pressure, so everyone is already overloaded. So the feedback shows, okay, this type of sharing is not so welcoming, so please stop. Then I stopped sharing. I hold all those strong emotions to myself, but I couldn't digest them. I just hold them in my heart. So that time is very darkest period of my life. And I was very lucky, just like Kim just mentioned, the good mentor. At that time, I found a book written by one of a great female leader of our organization about some difficulties in her life. So through the reading, I see, sometimes she feels scared and she had doubt as well. So if she can went through those hurdles, maybe I should be able to do so as well. So that book really bring me the courage and power. I remember I read this book during one flight. So I was in tears during the whole journey, probably scared as the people sitting around me. So when I get off the plane, I gathered my courage and wrote a letter to her saying, thank you for your book. This is exactly what I need. And surprisingly, she offered an opportunity for a live chat. So I had a live chat with her, and the most precious takeaway from that conversation is I'm allowed to be vulnerable, and it's okay. You can show your true colors. You can show your feelings, and it doesn't mean you are weak or untrustworthy. Those negative judgments non-exist. So I think. Sometimes the generation ahead of us gave us the courage. That's the most important thing, to break the stereotype of being perfect. No one is perfect, really.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for your sharing. And I think if you think about today's leadership as well, right? Today's leadership is about showing empathy. It is about showing emotion. And it is something that, when we were growing up in our years of leadership, we were told that good leaders don't show emotion. Good leaders are aggressive. Good leaders take decisions fast. Good leaders, just tell what they want and you do it. So that was the benchmarking that we were coming in on. And so we as women who were so few up there in leadership felt we had to be like that. And we were not authentic being like that. And so we never brought our true potential of leadership because we are not like that, right? And I see Farah nodding. So maybe Farah, you share a little bit about your journey and how did this impact?
Well, actually, it's quite interesting you said that, because I was having lunch with a male friend today, and I was saying, I have to rush because we're going to this recording. And he says, I hope women leaders in Labuan don't behave like Maggie Thatcher. And it's interesting because Maggie Thatcher came from the era where a woman leader had to be a man, right? But we know better now, especially with the pandemic and the need to be authentic, which thankfully comes naturally for us because there's a natural empathy within us, allows us to kind of break that mold and maybe show the men that being empathic is actually a plus, it's not negative within leadership, right? So that's the reason I was nodding about this old generation of leaders vis-a-vis the new generation of women leaders, which are very, very different. I think for me, if you go back to that question of bias, I think one of the things that I've never been a huge pro-woman kind of thing. I always felt that actually, until very recently, that you are there because you're the best for the job. And if you're not, get better, right? Stop, feeling sorry for yourself or using it as an excuse, right? I think some women may take, okay, and I'm being very open here, may take the option of, I'm a woman, that's why I didn't get the job, right? Or I'm a woman, that's why I should not, or blah, blah, blah. You use it as an excuse. There's an element of self-censorship that goes on within your internal conversations with yourself. But then, over the last couple of years or so, I realized that actually, unless as leaders, we talk about it as openly as we all are here, people are not going to realize that, no, number one, you don't use it as an excuse. Number two, you leverage of it, right? In the sense that it's okay to be vulnerable, as Ariel says. It's okay to feel that you're not good enough, but go ahead anyway, right? And I think it's important to understand that everyone has their inherent bias, and that you have to work against your self-censorship. That there's a level of self-censorship that everyone goes through, that kind of stunts us at a particular time. And it goes back to what was said earlier about that stereotype. I'm a certain age, I need to have a child. I'm a certain age, I should be married. I'm a certain age, I need to do such and such. You know what? No, it's your life.
And that is true. You need to have the courage to actually stand up. And even if it means being different, you should be happy with what you do, right? I mean, you use the word self-censorship. There are also books that talk about self-sabotage. In fact, we sabotage ourselves a lot because of all these stereotypes. And to be good girls, you must be like this. It's all these things that shape our growing up years as well, right?
Yeah. What is this? There's this term that the imposter syndrome, isn't it? Isn't that what it's called?
There is another thing that the neuroscientists, and we do it as well in women in Lead Women. We have been running this program called the imposter syndrome, where really sometimes we feel as if we are an imposter in that role. We feel not good enough, like what you mentioned, Farah. So I'm not good enough, and so hence I'm just an imposter here, trying to be someone I'm not, right? And when you have that, you tend to be very much introverted, and you think I need to be 200 times better in order to be in this role. So that's a great program, and I think we should run it in Labuan once, because I think many will resonate with it. And then it goes back to look at what kind of leader you are and you work from there. So yeah, that's true. So there are many of these things that really work within us to hold us back, and we need to break that. And Yon, you were also talking about the similar thing when you talked about you're on the board and you're the only woman. Now, it would be quite a challenge to speak up in these environments when you're the only woman as well, right? I mean, you fight for airtime, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit about that and how you have overcome.
Okay, I think in my case, you have to be true to yourself. So when you have issues and all that, you have to bring it. For me, it's not being a woman or a man, but it's being a person. So whatever issues that we have, and we know that those issues are pressing, the issues that need to be settled. And I guess the role that I'm having is the role that I connect. I'm the connecting dot. So if you, it's the, engaging with stakeholders or whatever that we need to do. So basically, I have the opportunity to actually link a lot of the, people with the issues or our various stakeholders with whatever that we are facing. But I guess being in that room, being in the discussion with the management and stuff, I don't really feel that I'm left out, or I don't really feel that I'm not being included in the conversation. I think we are all the same. Years back, when I first started and stuff, yes, I felt it a little bit but at that time I was not also in this role, and at that time I was being a manager level. But when you grow, when you actually go higher, and so you learn a lot, how to manage, how to get the buy-in, and how to, but not for me, not using me as a woman, but using me as a person, and the role that I'm actually carrying. And that's what in that role I will carry, and I will do whatever that it takes to actually do the work that I need to do.
Yes, at one point in time, you have to stop thinking gender as well, right? Because once you keep thinking I'm the only woman, then a lot of other things come in between and prevent you doing what you can fully bring to the table. And it's true, because whenever we talk about gender, and in the work we have done as well, everybody associates, meaning that if you want to have gender equality or parity, it means compromise on merit. And why does that have to be, right? It is actually the best for the job. And I quote Yvonne Chia, a very strong leader in the financial segment. I'm sure you all know her. And what she said was, maybe sometimes the best job for the man, could be the woman. The best job for the man could be so the woman could be the best person you choose for the job. The best job is her. But we are so biased in every way of thinking that we always have little pockets that, this job needs a lot of mobility, so it is a man. This job needs a lot of business relationships, it has to be a man. This job needs a little of the softer side, nurturing, let's put a woman. So we have already preconceived ideas on what we want to do, and that then guides our actions, right? So how do we go back inside our brains and make that shift? That's not easy. So Kim, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, and my thoughts were that there's this concentration on perhaps what a woman is wearing instead of nobody cares or worries about what a man is wearing or how he is dressed. But even and talking from experience, when you go to court, there's this concern about what a woman is wearing, where is her skirt a little bit too short, is she appropriately dressed, and that sort of thing. And that's another bias that women come up across, because that never happens with a man. Even if they have a crumpled tie that has soup stains on it or whatever, there's nothing said. But a woman, if maybe one button is unbuttoned, and there'll be all sorts of comments made. So that's a bias. And the second bias that I thought of is exactly what you were mentioning earlier, and the belief that if you're a woman or if you have children, you won't be able to take the pace. You won't be able to work, for many hours through the night because you have a family to go home to. And exactly as you said, then maybe that job should go to a man who doesn't have to worry about going home to tend to children or looking after the family or whatever it is. So that bias, I think, was more obvious again when I first started out. But now I think because there are just so many talented women who are there on merit, I think that has been, and who have shown that despite having a family, despite having children, they are able to cope. They are able to just do, as well as anybody else and do brilliantly. That it's now perhaps pushed to the side a little bit. And I think that's a great advance that we've made.
And also, because we are having these kind of conversations more openly, and we are able to stand up and say, these are our issues, and these are some of the things that need to change. And so if we as women are courageous enough to do this every time we have an opportunity, then I think we will be able to create that shift in momentum. But a lot of the time we are not courageous or not brave enough to take that because we don't want them to say, oh, there she goes again, being the feminist, and then we have to also deal with that side of that. And we don't want to be seen as if we're just doing it for the sake of ticking the box for the woman, but we want to do it because it is not about having a token woman sit everywhere, but it is about having a woman of substance and power sit and take the right decisions because she owns that seat at that table, right? So Nolela, from you, I haven't heard your thoughts. You mentioned the stigma. Yes, tell us a little bit.
Okay. And except for the time when I first joined the bank, where I obviously had to make the application for the job, my appointments are done without me having to apply for the positions. The irony is that all the appointments was proposed by my male bosses. So I believe, in all fairness, when talking about gender equality or inequality in the workplace, it does not necessarily mean that it is man versus woman. Like when I mentioned just now about stereotyping, unfortunately, stereotyping can also come from a woman.
Yeah, you're so right. You're so
I have
right.
seen that happen, although not necessarily to me. So therefore, all women in position, I believe, need to make the conscious effort to stop this from continuing to happen. Yeah, women leaders need to cheer louder for women. We can always grow together. There is so much room for that. And with this mindset and action, the 30% club, and of which you are the co-founder, right, can even become a 50% club or more, so to speak. Yeah, I would like to share, if I may, on how women can make the change. Make the change no matter where we are in the position that we are in. I have under me 5 direct reports who are the respective heads for my Labuan unit. And I'm pleased to share that 3 of them, which is 60%, are ladies. Of course, I don't simply put them there based on gender. That just because they're women, I'm a woman, that's why I put them there. No. But the key message is where the opportunity arises and the basis of the merit is there, we should make it happen. Yeah? In a way, I am blessed to be in an organization that has a notable record in being gender friendly to its women, thus empowering more women to scale up the corporate ladder. For this, credit should be given to the former Chief People Officer, Dato' Hamidah Naziadin. You know her, a wonderful and beautiful lady who is also an advocate of women's participation in the boardroom under the 30% Club initiatives. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I think putting it all in perspective, you're right. Bias is not just from the men, but bias is from every one of us, right? The way we are brought up, the way we experience life, experience work, and we bring that to the table. So I think having more people realize that and aware of that we can check and balance each other when we make comments. We don't realize our comments, right? And it's really coming from the inside bias that we all have. So a good way to segue and take our conversation to a close. Thank you, Nolera. So I think with this, we realize there are challenges, many challenges, and that we as women leaders can help shift and make a change where we can do it. And especially in this time of crisis, I think women leadership has come to the very forefront for the mere fact that it is okay for women to display emotion, right? And we got permission to do that, so we can even shed a tear when we go out there. Nobody's going to say anything. But men leaders feel, I cannot do that because it is a sign of weakness, right? But we know that true leadership is leadership that comes from the heart. Yeah. You can have all the head knowledge, but at the end of the day, it's leadership that comes from the heart, right? And you see that from Barack Obama. He has shed a tear or two when he talks about things that are really matter about people. And we've seen it also. We were playing this video the other day for the guy who heads the Marriott chain of hotels, and then they had to let people go, right? It was really moving. He's not somebody with great presence and all that, but just the fact that he was so empathetic and it came from his heart, really touched and engaged people. And we have that advantage as women leaders, right? We can really connect because we know what it feels like deep down inside. So this is a great conversation. Let me do a quick round before we close to ask you, if you were to challenge something that would help women leaders thrive and succeed, especially at this time, what would be an area that you would choose to challenge so that you can make the way forward for women leaders a lot smoother? Anybody wants to think of something that they would challenge? Would it be a bias, a stereotype? Challenge the leadership in terms of the recruitment process for leaders at the top. What would be something that you would say as IWD, I choose to challenge?
Okay, and I think for me, being here in Labuan, I've been here for almost 30 years. It's quite a long time. What we see over the course here, like you said, graduates or that are actually from this side of the, from Sabah, Sarawak, and also from Labuan, we need to provide them with the opportunities to be able to take them in and to give them, not just employment, but for us here, for the industry here, we have been working together to bring them in as interns, as management trainees and stuff, to actually help them, and we've been doing them continuously. That is the thing that we would like to go further, so that even if they are here with us for 6 months or a year, that will prepare them to actually go to the other sectors and stuff, whether in KL Peninsula or wherever else. So for our side here, we really focus on that to help basically the graduates, and for them to have the opportunity to be in the working world, to prepare themselves if they were to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you want to equalize that space for them, give them more, an opportunity to be equal with their peers on par in the West Malaysia. And I think that's a great thing to challenge as well, to say, why not? Why not these graduates as well? They should be on equal standing. So thank you for that, Yon. What about you, Ariel? What would be one thing you want to really drive?
If I allowed to choose what I challenged for, I choose mindset. So I want to challenge the current mindset, break it down, break the current frame down, and build the new one, build more equal and empathy or sympathy one, and do it, like you mentioned, in a new way for the leadership.
Okay, challenge the mindsets to be less biased, more open, and have a more equitable work environment for all. Okay, great. What about you, Kim?
I was just thinking whether we should, maybe it's quite radical, but when applications come in, could it not be without, say, photos? So that you don't pick people based on appearances, whether good or bad, and there's no question that somebody's been picked just because of the way they looked, but purely on the merit of, their qualifications. So no photos in applications, none of these more personal things that I don't think makes a difference. So that's what I think would be a challenge.
That's something that has been on the table quite a bit. They call it blind CVs. So, nobody sees the details. You only see the profile. You like it. And let's go to the next level,
Yeah.
And when they open it and they see it's a woman, it's like, oh, really? Or when they open it and they see it's a much younger person, they say, oh, but would they have the experience, So those biases get left behind. So that's a good way as well. And maybe you could choose to challenge the recruitment process in your organization to ensure, how do I de-bias that process, right? And Leila, what about you?
Okay, and allow me to quote the late Grace Hopper. You may have heard the name before from the USS Hopper. She's a pioneer in computer programming and a rear admiral in the US Navy. In fact, the word debug is closely associated to her, whereby she found a moth in her computer that disrupted her programming. And till today, the term debug is used whenever there are disruptions to her computer programming. So what she said was that leadership is a two-way street. Loyalty up and loyalty down. Respect for one's superior and care for one's crew. Well, you see, this particular quote couldn't be far more than the truth, especially during these pandemic times. Because we say respect for one's superiors, it means that we need to ensure that the business still runs smoothly and that the business doesn't collapse, for lack of a better word. When we say care for one's crew, there's never been a more important time for us to ensure that our team is taken care of and that their sense of security is still intact. Well, this is why women have the advantage. Our maternal instinct helps us, when it kicks in, it helps us, takes care of our team better. We do have higher EQ. A lot of, when we go into the characters, we do have a lot of advantage. So that's why for me, again, I need to emphasize this, that women leaders need to cheer louder for women. We can always grow together, and that there is so much room for that.
Okay, great. Now challenge the stereotype that says emotional leaders are bad or are soft or are weak, isn't it? Because that is such a stigma. So if you don't have emotions as human beings, then we are not human beings, right? We must be sad, we must be happy, we must be joyous, and we must have empathy, when people need that, right? And so I leave the last for Farah to close off and tell us what she's going to challenge and probably how can we take this further, Farah? This conversation is a great one to keep it going.
Yeah, no, it makes me so proud to be part of this group. Really, it does. And this is just skimming the surface. And, when we started looking at developing this program, the names just came flooding, and it's quite amazing. Actually, and I'd like to circle back to what Yon said about equalizing the Labuan space, because, as women, we like to get our hands dirty. We like to, get the job done and, feel satisfied, not from the kudos that you receive, but from something that everyone can achieve. So what I'd like to challenge myself and everyone in this panel is to join me to create a loose grouping for women in Labuan. Right? I'd like to create that because we go back to the fact that we run a financial center. We've been around 30 years. And the beauty and the challenge of a financial center lies within the talent pool. And then once you start looking at the talent pool, because we're a services sector, right? We're not, computing or all the rest of it. When you look at talent, then you start looking at humans. When you start looking at humans, then immediately it goes into gender. And what I'd like to propose to all the women here and all the women listening, whether you're part of the ecosystem, stationed in Labuan, stationed in Singapore, Hong Kong, wherever you are, China, KL, what we're going to do at Labuan IBFC Inc. is run a small group to begin with of like-minded women that want to elevate the number of women in Labuan, number one. Number two, provide a loose support group, right? Yes, mentoring is great, all the rest of it. sometimes, and this is not just open to the women, yeah, it's open to men as well, because, you know, I don't know, I'm sure the other women will agree, but we're not here without support from a man or other, or maybe a whole slew of men, I don't know. And so, you know, anyone who wants to create a higher representation of women within Labuan, or to push the gender equality agenda, what we'd like to do is create a loose grouping. We'll host it within our new website. And what I'd like to do is next year, on the 8th of March, is to come back and host another one of these things for us to see where we've come. You know, one of the comments I get a lot of is that, wow, so you represent an entire jurisdiction in Malaysia. Oh, I am actually the only female doing my job globally, right? Coming from a Muslim majority country, right? Expected to travel everywhere, expected to understand the business technically, expected to have the EQ, the charm, and yet the substance, right? And not once did anybody in Labuan FSA, my board at Labuan IBFC, or the authority members within Labuan, or anyone in the Labuan community ever said, she's a woman, can she do it? Right? And that's why, you know, you go back to that first statement I made about I am enough. I found myself asking that question to myself when nobody else was. Right? So I think that's important. It's important that everyone understand that if we don't limit ourselves, no one else can. And so I'd like to use this platform to kind of launch this initiative loosely and then see where we get from there in a year's time.
Okay, fantastic way to round up this whole panel and event. You know, the first event in Labuan, and you've already, you know, set a pace to take it forward. And that's very important, that it should not just end with this conversation, right? It should start with this conversation and have a life form, because it then brings a lot more meaning into what you want to do. So excellent, Farah and the Labuan women. I'm so proud to be a part of this, and I would love to be invited back again next year on March 8th and see where you have arrived. All right. So with that, thank you all very much, and have a great International Women's Day month of celebrations, and hope you are successful in whatever you start out and plan to do for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you all the panelists for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for staying with us. We really hope you enjoyed that conversation, and it was really an amazing opportunity for us to get to know the women of Labuan. And I can promise you, and honestly, hand on heart, those were just a few of the women in Labuan, because when the team and I started looking at the women to put on the panel, the names just came flooding, as I mentioned earlier. And with me are the women of Labuan IBFC, Inc. So as I said earlier, my team, my line managers are completely female by merit, okay? By merit, they're female. And I wanted to introduce you to them, take this opportunity to introduce you to them on this special Women's Day. So we have Waimun here. Waimun joined us as an event specialist. So Waimun's had an amazing, challenging time during COVID, transitioning or pivoting into becoming a webinar producer and calming my nerves about being on camera and getting the cues right and all the rest of it. So, you know, please welcome Waimun. We have Serene here. Serene is our technical manager. She's joined us from Labuan FSA, and she is born and bred Labuanite, unlike Waimun and myself, unfortunately. And she has been our pillar in everything that's technical, everything, all your questions when you come into us. She's the one who manages them all and helps us try to understand the technicalities of managing, supervising, and encouraging transactions and intermediation within our IFC. You heard from me about what I wanted to challenge this year, what I chose to challenge. And I want everyone listening in to come and maybe join this loose grouping of ours. You will hear more information about it as the year progresses. And I'm really keen to see where we are this time next year. Yeah. But I wanted to ask both Waimun and Serene here, what do they choose to challenge? What do you choose to challenge, Waimun, for yourself this year?
Well, for me this year, okay, so last year I feel like because COVID hit us last year, and very quickly we had to adjust and so on and so forth. But I feel like we still had lost a fair bit amount of time there, and so this year I choose to challenge myself to kind of live my life as to the fullest as much as possible in a new normal. And what I mean by that is like, yes, after COVID hit, it took us some time, but we adjusted and all that. But I think I've been putting putting on the back burner things that I feel are not so urgent, like that I don't have to fix, but still important, like work-life balance, or putting to the living a healthier lifestyle, things like that, being cooked out in the house all day. So no longer do I use COVID as an excuse to say, I'll do it later. I'll do it when things are back to normal.
So you choose to challenge, or you choose to challenge to reject the fact that COVID is an excuse. Fantastic.
Right. Yes.
Fantastic. Serene, what about yourself? What do you choose to challenge this year?
Okay. For myself, I think, to me, I think maybe because of COVID that we are working from home, so I don't really have a me time, and this is what I'm looking for. And then as a woman, and then as the role that I'm playing, you have to play the role as a mother, as a daughter, or even as a wife. So I really need the time for myself. Maybe just I wanted to have a break for myself, and maybe have a me time, a individuals travels for myself.
Oh, we all long to travel again for pleasure.
Yes.
And so you choose to challenge to love yourself more, to give yourself more time. It's fantastic, especially as a working as a mother to a 5-year-old. Believe me, I know it can be tough. Yeah. So earlier you heard from me, and I think you girls have some questions for me as well, but I wanted to just put this other bit out as well. You heard from me about what I wanted to challenge. And since everyone's been quite personal about what they want to challenge, I'd just like to share that my challenge is to have faith and patience. I choose to challenge myself to have, and I wrote this down, which is quite rare for me actually. I choose to challenge myself to have faith and patience, so I can embrace the endless possibilities and joy my future will hold. Right? So patience and faith, big ask for me. So this is what I choose to challenge. We have another team member that's missing. Her name is Audrey. She's on leave today. But I think if she were here, she would say that she chooses to challenge her obsession with the guinea pigs. So we'll see what happens after she hears this, because she didn't know I was going to say that. Thank you for staying. Oh, did you girls have anything to say? Anything else, ladies? Anything else to say on this day?
Yeah, well, I thought we would have this opportunity to ask you one question. The rare opportunity where we
live. Okay.
Ask you a question that's not to do with solving a problem that we have.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Go for it. So if out of curiosity, if you were a man, Farah, do you think at this point in your life would you be having a different career, or at a different stage of your career? Would it have made anything different?
Honestly, I think if I were a man, I would be, and all the men here are going to hate me for saying this, I think there are about 7 of you here. I would be less achieved, because I would be less in tune, or less willing to be in tune with how I feel. And I think that's one of the things that makes women so successful, is that we face reality, we take it on board, we make the best of the situation. We do not ignore reality. And I think the ability to do that allows us women to be a lot more successful than the men. Having said that, women have different priorities. And just because the definition of success is determined within a certain set parameter, as it is today, that is the definition of success. But I think our definition of success as women is slightly different. So I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe one question from me too, Farah.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's quite simple. So I just wanted to ask you, if there is one thing actually you can undo and unwind and start again, what would you do actually? In any things that relates to career, your life, anything.
Oh, let me see. It's tough because I don't live with regrets.
Okay.
So it's tough for me to say I would rather do this or rather do that. I think if there's anything I would undo is that belief that sometimes women, children, girls, young women grow up with thinking everything has to be perfect. And I think that is something that I would challenge. I would undo. My advice to my younger self would be, no, things are never going to be perfect. The timing is never going to be right. Everything will be wrong, but do it anyway. Right? So yeah, I'm sure Audrey would have enjoyed being in this chat. Unfortunately, she's not, because we've had a last minute change. We were going to have actually a counterpart from the Qatar Financial Center talk about the differences between the jurisdictions. So, you know, while this was actually, the panel recording was very Labuan centric, what we wanted to do as a special after the panel was to have a colleague from Qatar come in and discuss the differences in approach towards inclusion between Labuan and Qatar. So it's with regret that they can't make it due to an emergency, and instead you have the team here, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for staying with us. We don't want to ramble too long. One message that I just really wanted to get out there is that, you know, during this day or this month of inclusion for women, let's not forget that we're all the same. We're all created equal, men, women, all of us. So please celebrate each other regardless of gender. And women, enjoy the month. Thank you so much for staying with us, and we hope to see you next time.